Hello and welcome to my review of the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought with claw and drill weapons for Legiones Astartes for Warhammer the Horus Heresy from Games Workshop. I want to get this video out quite quickly. It was released the same day as the Dark Commune and the Cultists, and I thought it'd probably be best to get those reviews out first. I did build this Leviathan Dreadnought in the live stream on the Wednesday and then finished it up on the Friday. The Dreadnought will cost you £47.50 and consists of 153 plastic components. It does consist of a transfer sheet, which I don't think I found in the unboxing, or maybe I did, I can't remember, but still, this is a transfer sheet if you were wondering. It's just the vehicle transfer sheet that they bundle in with like the Rhino and things like that. So the format of this review is as usual. I'll talk a little bit about the model, we'll look at the model in detail, we'll go through all the spare parts, of which there are quite a few, then I'll go through some size comparisons, and finally we'll talk about all of the rules and why this is a very awesome unit. So this Leviathan Dreadnought, it's been a while coming. You can no longer get the sort of plain resin Leviathan Dreadnought from Forge World anymore. This isn't really a size comparison, it's just a comparison. This is what the OG Leviathan Dreadnought looked like without any Legion specific paraphernalia or identifier markings or filigree, pick your big words, whatever works for you. But pretty much this was it, the actual Leviathan itself, and then you got to pick the arm weapons separately. Some people did magnetize. I was one of those that didn't, because in my head at the time I had a big plan, a plan of having numerous Leviathan Dreadnoughts, all with different weapons, all glued securely so that I would never lose them, didn't have to you know, keep them in different boxes and pouches and all those kind of things. You got to remember, I'm a collector more than a gamer. So that was it. Picked up the Leviathan just because I'd never had one before. Really cool model, very impressed. As impressive as the you know, normal Contemptor Dreadnought at the time. But anyway, what they've done is they've introduced this Leviathan unit into plastic for Horus Heresy, like they've done with a lot of other models, such as the Predator and the Sicaran, and the Contemptor itself, of course, even though it's not really Games Workshop's first attempt at a plastic Contemptor. Let's not go there. So currently the only way to get a kind of resin Contemptor, if you are in the market for one, is from Forge World, which you should all know by now is a company that was created by Games Workshop that would handle miniatures that wouldn't sell as much as their sort of plastic counterparts. And here is one such example. Here's one I made earlier, a Dark Angels Leviathan Dreadnought. Now, the Dreadnought itself, just for the body, is £58.50, which is, you know, £11 more than the entire kit for the plastic one, which does have chest options and sort of groin armour options. But it really depends on whether you like the look of the Legion specific Leviathans, which clearly I do like this Dark Angels one. So that's kind of like a little introduction into Leviathans and Forge World and a little bit of the history. I think when they were first released they were about £50 or so. So yeah, it's great that you're now getting a plastic one that's a little bit cheaper than, you know, when they were first released. So if you've experienced my live streams, you'll find out that I enjoyed this kit more than the normal Contemptor Dreadnought and almost as much as the Kratos Heavy Assault Tank. It's a really nice kit to put together. It gives you plenty of options and you can magnetize parts of it. I've gone for this pose, sort of walking forward, about to fire that melter gun that's inbuilt. That's the one thing I'd just like to draw a slight comparison. You are getting more detail with the resin weapons and the full Leviathan kit actually. For instance, look at the amount of detail. You know, you're getting the weapon vents, there's a bit more 3D detailing, there's more, I say depth in the difference, but if you're not, you know, haven't got a keen eye, I guess, for detail and things, this will be perfectly fine, especially if you just want to go for the games and things. And unless you get a magnifying glass out, you're not going to notice that much. So it's a decent looking model. It's a nice kit to build. Options then, well, it comes with a claw and drill weapon option sprue. Now on this sprue you get 2 shoulders, which I'm counting this as shoulders, even though they are technically the shoulders. This is like the shoulder joint. So you're getting 1, 2 of those, and then the weapon like mounting itself, and 2 sets of drills and 2 sets of claws. However, you're only getting 2 of these kind of drill and claw mounting systems. So what that means is, if you pick up that upgrade sprue, you know, for the £16, which is obviously cheaper than getting another full-blown Leviathan, you'll be able to make the other weapons, I say the missing weapons that you wouldn't, or make the same weapons that you already have. So if you were to make another claw, then you can magnetize the claw and pop that in, and likewise if you made another drill. Up to you whether you think that's worth the £16. Typically, you know, it's going to get an extra attack if it's got the 2 claws or the 2 drills, and by having both of them, it gives you the option to sort of split your attacks. You can have all of your attacks on one or all of your attacks on the other. Up to you. One thing I would suggest you do is magnetize these weapons here. And what they've done is, they sometimes do this, and it's fantastic when they do. Normally they do this for Forge World resin minis, but they've given you holes here to put magnets in. You don't need to put those big strong magnets that I've put in. You can put slightly smaller, maybe cheaper magnets. It's plastic at the end of the day, so you don't need as much pull as the resin miniature. If you magnetize them, the only reason I haven't magnetized mine fully is because I've run out of magnets, but magnetize these heavy flamers, and then of course you can go for the Volkite calivers as well, if you wish. Fantastic looking mini, lots of options for poses. The cabling is pretty basic, you know, compared to the cabling on the resin miniature, which has the full bands. It has the 3D detailing in between each tube. This one kind of like, you know, it is all right on the side, but on the back it just gives up detail altogether, and that's a little bit of a disappointment. It was interesting to find out how they connected. You don't have to connect them, but you know, it does look a bit odd if you don't. Another thing is, if you wanted to magnetize the elbow area, like I have done with this resin, you can do that, that's fine, but you either have to leave the cables off or sort of glue onto the claw itself, and then kind of every time you put it on, you have to pop the ball joint in, which, yeah, I mean, you're probably not going to be doing that much, but I guess over time that's going to weaken the contact there. But it is an option. I'm pretty sure that when they release the full range kit of the Leviathan, they'll also have the ranged weapons on probably one sprue for you to pick up separately as well. Again, up to you whether you want to do that. If you've had a look at the preview, again, the weapons suffer, I'd say, from even more of a letdown of detail than these. The melter cannon itself, the cyclonic melter cannon, lance? I can't remember, I think it's lance. Yeah, what they've done is the way they've connected it is right down the middle of every single barrel, so you can see the join lines pretty easily, and that's one of the reasons why I went for you know, the resin weapons. I will be going through a full comparison with the ranged weapons, and of course that might help you decide whether you just want that extra bit of detail to go with them. So that's the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought. It is odd that they are releasing kind of 2 versions. I kind of would have preferred them just to release one Leviathan box set with everything in the box, but for £47.50 I'm not quite sure that they would be willing to do that. Yes, at the end of the day it's just one extra sprue, but if they're wanting to sell that sprue for £16, then you're looking at a kit that would be £63 minimum, and I think £63 for a plastic Dreadnought is sort of pushing it a bit, considering that this is also more expensive than the bigger Redemptor Dreadnought. So that's my ramblings over. Let's have a look at the spare parts. I've already showed you the Volkite calivers. These are the other spare parts. For some reason I've got some resin parts in there too, so we'll just separate them, I guess. They're from the Dark Angels Leviathan, but we'll just remove those, and we're left with pretty much the different sort of torsos, the different sort of chest plates. I went for the one with the scroll and one with the skull and the wreath. In hindsight, I probably, just because I wanted it to be, like, I don't know, probably more instantly recognisable as plastic than the resin one, because when they're all fully painted up and things, I might not remember, but I'm pretty sure I would remember which pose is in which. But anyway, that just splits it apart. You can have the standard chest plate, or you can have this one with the skull and the lightning. I'd probably say that that's more akin to a traitorous legion, but you know, might not be for you. And then this one, definitely the groin plate, there's a Eye of Horus there, so very much Sons of Horus legion with that one, or traitorous even. And then you can have just a plain one, so you can go for a full plain Leviathan Dreadnought. You get a different foot, which is not what you get with the well, Legion specific Leviathan. I certainly didn't. I just got 1 foot raised and 1 foot flat. With the plastic kit, you've got the option of having both feet firmly planted, firmly level, so you can go for that you know, stoic both feet planted pose. And of course you've got this as well, so you know, these are the toes, and you've got, you know, part of a Leviathan foot there, which maybe you could put on a bait. I don't know what you could do with that. You get the other shorter cabling, you get the second siege drill, and you get the second siege claw. You get this different cowling, which is a bit more, I say, special. It looks a bit more like an Iron Halo. For me, that didn't really work. I wasn't really that interested in that one. And then you get these really odd things. I don't know why they've just added these in, but they sort of go over there and I guess add a bit of bling. Maybe, you know, if I had Emperor's Children, I'd probably put it on just to add a bit more sort of gold onto the purple. But as you can see, the Dark Angels one with the armour edging all around is just a way better effect. I just think that's a bit pointless, really. So there you go, they're all the spare parts. Okay, so the next part of this review, I will go through some size comparisons. So we've already kind of had some comparisons with resin Leviathan Dreadnoughts right here and here. Pretty much the same size. I mean, of course, it depends on which pose you pick, depending on its sort of height, but you know, if you've already got a resin Dreadnought, it's going to be the same height as all of them. Compared to another Dreadnought, of course, we've got the Contempt Dreadnought. Whoops. It is, you know, fair bit chunkier on the bigger base as well than a Contemptor, so there is that. You're definitely going to spot one of these on the battlefield. You know, you're not saying, you know, the Contemptor's small or anything. Let's stick with kind of sort of infantry troop choices for now. We've got the Praetor in the Age of Darkness set, and we've got a Mark 6 Space Marine. So as you can see, Leviathan would absolutely dwarf both of those. It's 2 if not 3 times taller than those. They say in the fluff that they're pretty difficult to manufacture, more difficult to manufacture than an Imperial Knight even. There's that much technology and things in them. And they were first conceptualized to potentially fight against, you know, Mechanicum units later on in the Heresy. Compared to, say, like a Primarch, if you've read some of the lore and some of the books, without going into too many spoilers, there's a certain thing that happens between Primarch and a Leviathan, which I won't sort of go into detail here, but it's pretty funny, and yeah, it sort of illustrates kind of like how powerful Primarchs are, but I'll leave it to you to get to that point in all of the stories. You've got a Terminator, so yes, if you're thinking of trying to, you know, take one of these Leviathans down in combat with a Terminator squad, this is how big it's going to look next to just say one Terminator. So pretty big model. I'll just show you some comparisons with vehicles other than sort of like the Dreadnoughts, and that would be with like a Rhino first of all. Massive compared to a Rhino. We've got a Kratos as well right here. Gives you an idea. Kratos is still, you know, a big model. But the Leviathan is, I'd say, sort of almost taller than it, very chunky. And of course, just comparing to my Land Raider Spartan. I think he's taller than the Land Raider Spartan as well. So that gives you an idea, well, just mainly how big the Spartan is, really. And the final comparison I'd like to make is just with some 40k miniatures, because I always do this. So here we are, we've got a normal Space Marine, Primaris and Sly Marbo. Primaris Space Marine potentially comes up to the hips almost. So yeah, big Dreadnought. Now, as a little bonus for this video, which might surprise you, you might be pleasantly surprised, but I thought I'd also do a size comparison with my favourite Dreadnought. Is the boxy Dreadnought, otherwise known as the Legion Castra Ferrum Dreadnought Talon. So this boxy Dreadnought is heavy, it's metal, it's got the square base, and I think the Primaris Marine is almost as tall as it, but still it is my favourite Dreadnought, and I think me just throwing it around that's going to need a bit of a repair job anyway. So yeah, that's my favourite looking Dreadnought, the boxy Dreadnought, and just gives you an idea, it's kind of half the size, and then we go from that to whatever happened with Primaris. Well, here they are, here is Primaris. So the Primaris Dreadnought is a bit bigger, bit taller than the Leviathan Dreadnought. You've got you know, these chest weapon. You've got these chest-mounted weapons, which is a little bit of a copy. Instead of the weapon built into the fist, you've got it, you know, to the side. You know, and then you've got a main weapon on the other side as well. You've got this rocket pod, again very similar to the Phosphates Discharger, and you can open up the you know, sarcophagus to an extent. But there you go, that's the Redemptor Dreadnought. I'm not even going to go there with the Invictus, don't troll me on that one. But then, as an even bigger bonus, he's done it. We've got the Custodes Dreadnoughts. You didn't think that I would probably put these in, but we've got the Galatus Dreadnought, which is similar to a Contemptor, and we have the best Dreadnought in the entire game, the Telemon Dreadnought, on that whopping, I think it's like 100mm base, I want to say. It's ginormous, humongous even, and it is my favourite new sort of Dreadnought. Absolutely love it. Every time I whip it out, I just want to play with it, but also buy a new one, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. That's a little bit of a, you know, Dreadnought comparison, a Dreadnought off, if you want to call it what it is. But I hope all of those numerous size comparisons have helped you in your decision. of whether this Leviathan is for you. The last thing I wanted to say about this Dreadnought, which I kind of just touched on briefly, is magnetization options for the melee weapons. What I've done here is I put a magnet, quite a thicker magnet, thicker and stronger than you'd ever need really. I've just drilled a little bit of a recess in there to give it a bit more space. Even if you don't do that, for these plastic ones at least, there's a big hole there, so you've got plenty of room to put your magnet in. The only issue really is to try and get that magnet in and keep it, affixed really. You could probably get some plasticard and cut it to a shape and glue it and melt it in there and then put your magnet on top of that. That would be a better way. I don't have any plasticard at the moment, so I couldn't do that this time. But whatever you do, if you do that and you make whatever magnet you use flush, that opens up opportunities for you to magnetize your resin Leviathan, and they have a blanking plate already, so I just drilled a small magnet in there, and of course your other magnet will work, and that gives you the option. So already I've been able to, so that means that I'm going to be able to give this Dreadnought pretty much every configuration other than 2 melee weapons. So that is an option, and of course that means I can then put this resin melee weapon, the Siege Claw, onto that plastic Dreadnought without any issues at all. So there are some magnetization options, and I'm really pleased that I did that in the end, because what I will be doing is at some point, very, very carefully, I will be snipping off both the claw and the drill. They are glued in there pretty tightly, but I'll be taking them off and putting magnets in when I get my delivery of magnets, and then that will just give me an option to have this one with either 2 claws or 2 drills. But there's a bit of reverse engineering there that you can do to make that happen. Okay, so there is only one thing left for me to do in this review, and that is to go through all of the rules for the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought with claw and drill weapons. They are as follows. So you won't find him in the elite section like you'll find the Contemptor, so that kind of pushes him into the realm of, do you take him over any of the tanks like the Sakarans or the Predator Squadron, or Land Raiders, or Sakarans even. So yeah, it does push him into that section. But he will cost you 270 points. That's quite pricey. I mean, obviously he's not as much as a Spartan, which is 350. He's not as much as a Kratos, which is 300, but he is more expensive than a Land Raider Proteus Explorator. And he's a fair bit pricey, and he's a fair bit more expensive than some of the Sakarans, most of the Sakarans. About 95 points more than a normal Contemptor, for the same weapon skill and ballistic skill, for the same saves, a little bit better but a little bit better toughness. We'll go through that now. So its movement speed is 6 inches. That's not great. It's not terrible though. It's still slower than a normal sort of Space Marine, so you can run away from these things if you wish. The weapon skill and ballistic skill are both 5. The weapon skill and ballistic skill are both 5, which is brilliant. That means 2+ to hit and to hit for both ranged and melee. You got a strength of 8, which is awesome. Toughness is 8, which is fantastic. You got 7 wounds there. Initiative 4, 5 attacks. Leadership 9 and a save of 2+. War gear, you get 2 Leviathan Siege Claws with built-in melter guns and 2 heavy flamers. It has the Atomantic Deflector, which gives it a 5+ invulnerable save. And the special rules, you've got Legiones, Astartes, Dreadnought Talon, Hammer of Wrath, and Move Through Cover. Dedicated transport, yes, believe it or not, you can put this in a transport, the option being a Dreadnought Drop Pod or a Charybdis Assault Claw. And the dedicated transport does not use up an additional force organisation slot, but it's still got to be paid for. I would always put your Leviathan in a Dreadnought drop pod. Yes, they are £75 from Forge World, and yes, I don't have an unboxing or review of one, but I will do soon, and I think it's a must buy. The Dreadnought drop pod isn't that pricey, and it just allows you to surprise your opponent with a Leviathan, which is always a nice thing to do. It's the slowest out of the Dreadnoughts. It's arguably the shortest range, depending on the weapons you go for. You want it to be in close combat, ripping up Terminators, Space Marines, whatever, with its siege claws and siege drills. The range weapons on this thing aren't the best. Your best loadout is still going to be the Cyclonic Melter Lance. The Grav Flux Bombard is a bit odd because it doesn't really share the same rules as the other Grav weapons, and the Storm Cannon, although it can rend things to death, it's not the best with the 24-inch range and the AP4. You're better off taking a fully fledged Dreadnought with its autocannon battery and its additional chest-mounted heavy bolters. I mean, that just is, yeah, beats heavy flamers, right? Anyway, let's go through the rest of the rules. So the unit may include up to 2 additional Legion Leviathan Dreadnoughts at 270 points per model. So you're not saving any points, they're going to cost you the same. I don't know anybody that would be picking up 3 Leviathans in one detachment. Well, other than myself, obviously. That'd be 810 points though on 3 Dreadnoughts, quite pricey. You can replace either of its Leviathan siege claws and inbuilt melter gun with one of the following: siege drill and inbuilt melter gun, 5 points; storm cannon at 10 points; cyclonic melter lance, quite pricey at 20 points; grav flux bombard. And it goes on to say, if any siege claw is replaced with a Leviathan storm cannon, melter lance, or grav flux bombard, the model reduces its attacks characteristic to 4. This is only applied once, regardless of how many weapons are replaced. So, you know, if you've got a melee Dreadnought like this one, it's going to have the full 5 attacks. But if you, as soon as you swap it with a ranged weapon, it's going to drop down to 4. Any Legion Leviathan Dreadnought may take 1 Phosphex Discharger. Worth it, even though it's 20 points, it's worth it. And then it may replace its heavy flamers for Volkite calivers at 15 points per model. It's up to you whether you think that's worth it. The heavy flamers are pretty good anyway, being a strength 5 AP4 template weapon. The Volkite calivers are a decent range of 30 inches, so you're getting that extra range, and they're a nice strength 5 AP5 heavy 3 deflag rate. So you are getting 2 twin linked ones as well, so you'll be getting 6 shots there that can re-roll even though your ballistic skill is 5. So it's up to you if you want those 6 extra shots at range 30 inch. And then the Phosphex Discharger, the word discharge, it's just dirty. But this weapon is also dirty. It's an 18-inch range, so it's not that far for your discharge, but it is a strength 5, which is alright. But the AP is 2. Hold the line. It's a heavy 1, barrage, blast, 3-inch, poisoned. So this discharge can poison you on a 3+, crawling fire, and lingering death. Yeah, don't leave home without this little extra 3-inch blast template. Death-giving, rare, corrosive, toxic and incendiary compound. Utterly inimical to life. Just don't leave home without one, really. I'm yet to see a Leviathan Dreadnought without a Phosphex Discharger. Anyway, so there's some of the weapons on there. Obviously the melter guns, I mean, that's great that you're getting melter guns. You know, although it's a melee Dreadnought, it has a surprising number of ranged weaponry on it. So if you take the Volkite, you've got a 30-inch weapon there. You've got the melter guns, which are, you know, 12-inch, and you've got the Phosphex Discharger, which is 18 inches. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's still 5 ranged weapons on this melee Dreadnought. Melter guns work as normal. You're getting, you're going to get your 2 shots of Strength 8, AP 1, Assault 1, Armor Bane. So that works brilliantly if you're, 6 inches or less to another Dreadnought or a tank. It's going to melt it, probably melt it before you get into close combat. It just takes a few more hull points and things off it. But be careful, because you might blow it up and then you're going to be left out in the open, vulnerable to your opponent's 10-man las cannon squad. The main weapons that it can take, though, which I will go over, even though this isn't the ranged version of the Leviathan, I'll still go over them because I do have them, and that means that the Leviathan ranged Dreadnought review will be very similar to this one in this regard, but the 3 weapons you can go for, we'll go through them in kind of weakest order, I guess, which would be the Grav Flux Bombard. Why not? It is a grav weapon, kind of, but it is an 18-inch, so it's pretty short range. Strength is, well, it doesn't have a strength. Its AP is only 4. It's a heavy 1, large blast 5-inch, graviton collapse, torsion crusher, ignores cover, and concussive. So it's nice that it's large blast, but it doesn't have graviton pulse and it doesn't have haywire, which is which are the main reasons why you go for grav weapons anyway. And it's really poor. They've added this torsion crusher and graviton collapse as fancy new words, but in reality you'd much rather be best off with pulse and haywire. And I hope they do change that in an FAQ or something, because that's the thing that's letting that weapon down. The autocannon then, called the Leviathan Storm Cannon, absolutely, oh, it sounds so cool, doesn't it? Storm Cannon. It's a short range, but not as short as the Grav Flux or the Melter. It's a 24-inch, strength 7, AP 4, heavy 6, rending 5+. I think I mentioned it was 6+ earlier, so apologies. And it's got Sunder, which is very nice. I'm still not put off by its AP4 or its short range. I'm still going to get 2 of them. I think before it might have had a 36-inch range. I'm not entirely sure, but 24-inch range for like an autocannon type weapon is not the best. And all of these autocannons, like the Kratos battle cannon at 36-inch range, and this one, sort of makes the Predator cannon seem really decent at the 48-inch range, strength 8, 4 shots, rending 6. I don't know, it just seems like these other autocannon weapons, or auto weapons, are bumping up the Predator's cannon. Anyway, that's that weapon. And then the final, last but not least, I'll save the best till last, is the Melter, is the Cyclonic Melter Lance. It sounds awesome. Again, it's the same range as the Grav Flux, it's 18 inches, but it is strength 8 and it is AP 1, and you do get 4 shots at Armor Bane. That does mean that you have to be super, super close, 9 inches, not as close as the Melter guns on it, but still 9 inches to get those extra damage. And you do get 4 strength 8 shots. So, and if any get through any of the Terminators and things, and they fluff up their 5+ if they're in fast Tartarus armor, or the 4+ in Cataphracti, they will die instantly because of the strength 8. So it is a valid way of softening up a potentially damaging unit before you go in and rip it to shreds with the claws and the drills. And that's the Leviathan Dreadnought's rules. The final point I want to make is Dreadnoughts are really good in this edition in Horus Heresy, particularly the Contemptors. Contemptors, I say, have one up on this because they are in the elite section. And typically the elite section, unless you're really itching to use a rapier battery, apothecary detachment, or a Terminator squad, you're going to have some space to have a Contemptor Talon, and you can have 3, and similarly to the Leviathan, you can have up to 3 in that Talon. The main differences between both this and the Contemptor: so for one, the Contemptor is 95 points cheaper It's 2 inches faster. It's got the same weapon skill and ballistic skill. It just doesn't quite have the same strength or the toughness. It has 1 less wound, and it has 2 attacks less. But in reality, only 1 attack less if you're going to have a ranged weapon with it. But the saves remain the same. So you're just missing out on 1 wound, 1 toughness, 1 strength, but you are getting a bit of a faster Dreadnought. Another thing it's kind of missing out on, one of the other reasons I would pick a Contemptor over this is just the ranged weaponry available. There's so much. The Leviathan, the maximum ranged weapon you're going to get is with that, believe it or not, 24-inch storm cannon. With a Contemptor, you've got so many more options. You've got the conversion beam cannons, you've got the dual culverins, you can go for Gravis las cannon, like 2 of those. You know, it can move the 8 inches and fire those Gravis las cannons at 48-inch range. But you are missing out on all of those extra goody weapons. I mean, a Contemptor with 2 twin-link las cannons is just that. Whereas, and it will get bogged down very easily with normal Space Marines. At least with a Leviathan Dreadnought, you've got that strength 8 base. So if you went for a mortis pattern, I'd call it, or fully ranged one, at least you're getting that strength 8 with the Leviathan, and you're getting that extra attack. And it's going to be much harder for them to wound it on a toughness 8. So they both do different things. The Leviathan is more focused short range firepower and melee, a bit better survivability, and more shorter range weaponry like the Phosphex Discharger and the chest mounted weapons, but you're paying more for that. The Legion Contemptor focuses more on speed and its diversity in its range weaponry. As I said before in the review, I would always pick a Dreadnought drop pod for the Leviathan, but not always pick a drop pod for a Contemptor. A Contemptor can, you know, sit at the back and fire las cannons, or sit in the back and fire beam cannons, whereas the Leviathan, it does need a bit of support, either from a drop pod or another squad or something like that. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, what do you guys think of the model and the rules? I've talked at length in this Leviathan Dreadnought review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed making it and talking about it. Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.